Hey everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and welcome to Waiver Wire Week. I'll say it's Casey, Week 3. I'm excited to be here. This is actually our first Waiver Wire show. We didn't do it last week just because it was so early in the season. And the week before it was less like, there's 3 games played in Korea. We're really going to talk about, there's nothing to talk about. So we're here. We're going to help you throughout the season. We'll have great ideas of waiver wire pickups, who to get rid of, who's coming back off the DL. We'll have a bunch of ideas. Casey is a genius when it comes to minor leaguers, so he'll tell you who's coming up, who you should watch out for, who you should pick up now because you won't get them when they're brought up. So we'll have everything for you this season. I'm so excited, Casey. Say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, it is week 3, Ross. Finally, the weather took a turn for the good here on the East Coast. You know, we've been getting a lot of rain and a lot of rainouts. So I'm excited to watch baseball. I love the spring for that purpose. You know, it's been a little tough to watch all of these starting pitcher injuries happening.
Oh, let's talk about it. I mean,
in the game. I mean,
Casey,
you got Strider,
tell me he was hurt. Go ahead.
Well, the big names are Spencer Strider, Garrett Cole. You got Yuri Perez there in Miami. You just had Framber Valdez get taken out of a start. There's been a bunch. I'm even missing some. So off the top of my head, but Jonathan Loáisiga of the Yankees is going under the knife for Tommy John. It's insane. So it's hard to watch. Some people are blaming the pitch clock. Others are blaming the crackdown on illegal substances.
No, that's not it. You know what it is, Casey? I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what to blame in Major League Baseball. I'll tell you what the problem is and why these pitchers are going down like never before. Because they're throwing sliders over 90 miles an hour. They're testing their arms in weird positions that you can't do. I mean, they're being forced to throw the ball so hard now compared to 10 years ago that the arm can only take so much, Case. And again, I know Tommy John is a 90% chance he'll come back to it. I get it. But
it's Strider's second Tommy John surgery.
That's a great example. He throws so hard.
Have put such an emphasis on velocity and spin rates that it is making the pitchers just blow their arms out. Like, it almost feels like you're going to start seeing Tommy Johns in high school just as a way to get it out of the way so that we can, when we get to the pros, we're healthy and moving forward. But it's hard to watch.
When I grew up, I was always told, don't throw a curveball. You're too young because you're going to screw your arm up. And you know what? That coach was right. I mean, these guys are throwing curveballs when they're like 12, 13-year-old now. And, you know, some of these 12-year-olds are throwing 80 miles an hour. I mean, it's insane what's going on in like Little League and Pony League. It's just like these guys are forced to throw off speed stuff, breaking stuff. I mean, this stuff is just should not be happening till at least when they're developed. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And it's just going to get worse. But the good news is Seawald is coming back soon. He's throwing again, the closer in Arizona. And then Bueller, just call him Bueller. I love Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
So I know.
So Bueller is pitching in the minors, and I think he has one more start. He'll be back next week for the Dodgers, which is huge for me because I have him in a fantasy league. But there is some good news. Pitchers are coming back. We'll see some. Hopefully, we'll see a Cole maybe soon. Maybe in June. And then we got Max Scherzer's hurt. Scherzer's hurt. DeGrom's hurt. I mean, it's just like there's such a laundry list of people that are hurt with pitching wise, and that list just gets longer every week. I mean, Valdez was yesterday or the day before, and I don't even want to wake up in the morning and see who's next. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah. I have Spencer Strider on a couple teams, so I had to watch. I'm dealing with that. I have Yuri Perez in the Dynasty League, so I'm dealing with that. I just wake up every day and read and hope that one of my starters isn't the one that got elbow inflammation or forearm tightness over the previous 24 hours.
So let's talk waiver wire. Let's get into it. We're talking about pitchers. My number one pitcher that I love this season that's under 60%, that's the rule. If it's under 60% in Yahoo, let's say, that's somebody we can talk about picking up. So I love what Pittsburgh's doing, especially with their young players. And Jared Jones And this guy is for real. This guy throws hard, and this guy is a guy that I want on my team. What's your take on Jared Jones this year?
I really like him. I mean, he flew under the radar. He was a good prospect. He's in the top 100 prospects, but because they drafted Paul Skeens with the first overall pick this year, and everybody's just waiting for him to make his debut on the mound, Jones got a little forgotten about. And Pittsburgh, what do they have, the second best record in baseball right now? Something like that, I think.
Yeah,
they've been playing great. They lost today to Detroit. But I mean, they've got players playing well. Brian Hayes, Connor Joe, who I'm sure we're going to talk about as a pickup.
I have Connor Joe. Yeah,
yeah. There's a lot of guys
O'Neal Cruz is playing like he never got hurt last year.
Yeah,
and Sadowski. I mean, they have some really good young bats, and like you said, Skis is somebody that I wish they would have started him opening day. Can you imagine going and seeing him pitch the first game in Pittsburgh this year? They would have sold the place out, Casey Scheinfeld.
Yeah,
I'm
the
right.
Pittsburgh fan base. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I see a lot of Pittsburgh fans around here, and they are, they're pretty awesome because they don't give up on their team, even though it's been how many years of mediocrity. When they, the last time they were this excited, it was Gregory Polanco and those guys in the outfield who were awesome. And that was 10, 12 years ago. And Polanco
I'll go older than that. I'll go 79 when We Are Family with Star Joe Marino. I'm older than you, Manny Seguin. I'll go older.
Let's go outfield of dreams in the 90s when you had Bonilla, Bonds, and Van Slyke. So there were some good teams back then too. But it's been this century has not been good for Pittsburgh.
No, not been good. But I'm excited too. I mean, when they bring up Skis, he's something special. He's throwing over 100 in the minors right now consistently, not like just one pitch 100, like 103, 102. I mean, this guy is electric. And
he's fun to watch.
And I feel he'll be up. Listen, I'll give you a date when I think he'll be around. I say he makes his first debut around NFL draft, Casey Scheinfeld.
Okay, end of April.
I'll say end of April. I think they'll be forced to bring this kid up. I think there's too much excitement, and I think he's ready. I mean, he pitched in college last year. He was dominated at LSU. I mean, this guy's a complete stud. So I agree with you, Casey. I feel Pittsburgh. I feel they're rejuvenated. I feel that they can win the Central because Central is the worst division in the whole Major League Baseball. Both Centrals.
I was looking at your Reds offense. It's pretty stellar.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's good, but the pitching staff, mediocre at best. I love Hunter Green. I just think he's inconsistent. Montez is pitching wherever his head.
Lodolo. You got
Lodolo's hurt, but Abbott. I love Abbott. I love Abbott, as you know. And Ashcroft is okay too. So the Reds can compete. I mean, they scored 10 runs yesterday, and I know you're down on De La Cruz.
I'm not down on him.
You call him a bust, Casey Scheinfeld.
I own him in 2 leagues. But he was one of my bust picks. That's true. But I still look, just because I'm calling him a bust doesn't mean that if he's there when the value's right, I'm not going to snatch him up.
I know. I'm teasing you.
That guy's electric.
He is, but he does strike out a lot. So let's talk waiver wire. My first pickup for a pitcher was Jones for Pittsburgh. KC, who's your number one waiver wire pickup for week 3?
I wasn't all that impressed with the pitchers available, but I think Spencer Turnbull in Philadelphia, he's been pitching great. He's part of that revolution. He's part of that group that added the sweeper slider type of pitch to his arsenal this offseason. And so far it looks legitimate. He's racked up a lot of swing and misses and weak contact with it. So his numbers are great. He's only 49% owned. The Philadelphia offense is going to give him a chance to win a lot of games. Their bullpen has improved and will only get stronger when Orion Kirkring comes back here in the next week or so. I don't know what they're going to do when Taijuan Walker gets healthy, because that's who he kind of replaced in the rotation. But and Turnbull was with, I believe, oh, no, he's been with the Philly. He was with Detroit last year. He was with the Phillies all spring.
He's with Detroit, yes.
But if he's pitching this well, they're not going to be able to take him out of the lineup, out of the rotation. So he was my top arm to pick up.
I like it. I saw him pitch. I think he pitched yesterday. He looked good. But, he's not really a strikeout guy. He doesn't strike many people out, but he doesn't make many mistakes. I do like him. Let's talk hitters. Our the guy you wanted on the cover, Bryce Turang of the
Yes,
Milwaukee
Bryce
Bucks.
Terang.
He's leading the league in stolen bases right now. He has
And I
7.
think he hit a grand slam 2 nights ago.
I mean, he's hitting, he's fielding, he's playing, he's running, he's doing everything you want. I mean, he was originally like a utility guy. Remember the past couple of seasons, utility.
And he still
But
is
now,
this year, but
yeah, he's playing every day though. They have him in the
well, he's
lineup.
playing
They
every
can't.
day because they can't get him out of the
He's hitting
lineup because
400.
he's doing so
Yeah,
well.
I mean, I think he's the number one fantasy guy. Is that right? Am I right, or is it Mookie Betts still? I forgot who it is.
I haven't
Turang's
looked. I
up
think
there.
he's,
Top
I mean,
5.
Terang is, look, we put him on the cover, but he is over 60% owned now. I think he's into the 70s, but still.
He is, but we got to talk about him a little bit just because he's somebody that we never brought his name up during our fantasy shows beginning of the year. I never did. And this is somebody that this happens in baseball. There's somebody that starts so hot in April that you just got to pick up. Another guy that I did the same thing with is Michael Confronto of the San Francisco Giants. I mean, he was a Met for a long time, and he started at April huge. He's kind of day to day now. He's a little banged up, but he'll be back.
And that's his bugaboo. He gets hurt every year. It seems like shoulder or back issues. So yeah, I agree with you though. He's great. I mean, somebody who the San Diego Padres are playing well, and the guy who leads the team in RBIs right now is Jake Cronenworth. Plays first and second base. We know how weak second base is. He only has 1 home run, but 11 RBIs already, batting over 300, playing almost every day. He qualifies at first and second. He's somebody I think you have to consider for a roster if you need help in the middle infield or quarter infield. So he qualifies first and second, middle infield, corner infield. He just gets everything for you.
Yeah, and I had Jung that went down. I actually picked him up in one of my leagues. I had Jason Jung who went down for Texas recently. Josh Jung, he's out for at least like 3 months. I mean, he broke.
I think it'll be close to 3 months. Yeah.
I mean, he's a huge loss. He was going to have a huge first half, Casey Scheinfeld, and it just broke my heart when I heard he's hurt. I mean, that Texas Ranger lineup.
Remember how good he was last year before he got hurt. He was going to be rookie of the year last year until he got hurt. So he's got the talent. He just has to stay healthy.
Casey, there's a pitcher in Oakland. I know we don't like talking about Oakland A's pitchers, but I saw him pitch, and he's complete nasty stuff. I mean, he's 6'7", big kid, Mason Miller of the Oakland A's. I mean, this is somebody I think he'll be traded by All-Star break. I think a team's going to pick this kid up that wants to win now. I don't see Oakland. I see Oakland. They'll pay anybody. They don't really care because they're just waiting to move into Vegas. And that they think you get draft picks, they'll do it. What's your take on Mason Miller? Is it worth a pickup?
Now, they have him pitching out of the pen, correct?
He's a relief pitcher, yes.
Yeah.
He's like relief. He's not.
I think he'll get traded. If you're in a league that values holds, I think he's a really smart guy to get right now. He'll get some saves for Oakland, but when he gets traded at the deadline, it's going to be to a team to be their 7th or 8th inning guy who can just come in and strike out the side when they're in the jam or a pickle. I don't see him going to a contender that needs a closer necessarily because he is young, and you don't trust a young, unproven closer on a playoff team. You just don't. So I like him. I think he's a valuable, especially in a dynasty type of format. And if your league values holds, he's somebody because he'll help you with your peripheral numbers, even if he's not getting saves.
I just don't know if I don't know if they'll make him. I mean, I think they're waiting for him to close games. That's want him to have some confidence. But I think he's like a future like save guy for a big team. I mean, I could see him closing in one of these big markets, Yankees, something like that, Red Sox, somebody like that. That makes sense. But I watch, I flip the channels around and watch different games all the time, and he caught my eye. I didn't know what your take on him was. Obviously, I mean, he's as nasty stuff. I mean, he's unhittable. I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that I for sure, if I'm in a dynasty league or in a keeper league, keep my eye on him for sure. I'm going to say a name, but when I say his last name, all my stuff in my office is going to go crazy, but I'll do it anyway. Jose Siri of the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, this guy is
Yes,
is
6
stealing
steals
bases.
in the last 2
Yes,
weeks.
stealing bases. He has power, big guy. I mean, what's your take on Siri this year? Is it somebody that you want to pick up?
I like him. I mean, he's not going to help you in batting average, but he's not going to hurt you. He's not a big power guy, but he is kind of like the straw that stirs the drink there for Tampa Bay. He gets on base. He's not afraid to run. We know how aggressive Tampa likes to be with their base runners. So he's not going anywhere. He's not a replacement player for somebody who's hurt. Now, when Josh Lowe comes back, there might be some playing time issues, but Tampa is amazing at getting all of their players a lot of at bats, and so I would see him being valuable for a majority of the season for his speed and run scoring ability alone.
Let's go back to San Diego. Let's talk about their starting shortstop. Let's talk about Jackson Morrell.
Well, he's their starting center fielder.
Starting center
but
fielder.
I have him on my list too. Yeah, but he qualifies at shortstop in the outfield now. So
what's your take? Is he on your list? Is it something?
Oh yeah, he would be a priority pickup for me. Not only because he's doing well the last 2 weeks. He's a top 100 player with 10 runs scored. He's stolen a bag. He's batting over 300. But he's also a top prospect. So they expect even bigger things from him. And if he's just getting his feet wet and doing this well, he's one of those guys who has a ceiling that's higher than a lot of the other players we're talking about. So if he's available in your league, I know I own him in a couple. I would jump on him pretty quick.
Yeah, jump on pretty quick, folks. Casey knows his stuff. Let's talk another player that's pretty high on my list, but again, I'm kind of prejudiced when it comes to the Angels. Tyler Ward. Is kind of doing pretty well right now. And he's an outfielder. What's your take on Tyler Ward this season?
You know, it's not Taylor Ward for me. I'm not fair to him, right? He puts up these numbers every year, it seems like, and he's good. The last 2 weeks, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, over 300 batting average, top 20 player in fantasy. I can't knock him. I don't like to own him. I'm a exit velo guy, and he's always in the bottom, like 20% of the league in exit velocity. And I always expect that means there's a trap door somewhere that or a big pothole that he's going to step in, and you're going to see his numbers go down. I'm not telling you not to own him. I'm not telling you that his numbers aren't impressive. I'm just telling you he's one of those guys that I can't get behind.
Casey, let's go through your list now. I'm giving you some of mine. I feel I'm hogging all the time here. Let's hear some of your guys, and I'll comment on some of the guys that you want to bring up. Go ahead.
You know, one of the positions everybody always struggles with. Now, this guy is 64% owned, so I'm breaking the rule a little bit.
Okay. The thing is, it fluctuates so much. It really does during the week. It's like
right.
50.
And at catcher, Luis Campusano in San Diego. He was, again, this guy was a top prospect, so he's been known for a long time. They love him in San Diego, and I was listening to some MLB shows the other day, and they were talking about how composed he is, how good his at-bats are, how solid his swing is. And last 2 weeks, you know, he's batting 350. He's driven in 8 runs. You know, to get a young catcher, to get a catcher who's producing is gold. So even though he's 65% owned, he's one of my top pickups this week. And then I mentioned him briefly earlier, Connor Joe, first baseman outfielder for Pittsburgh. He's just putting up numbers. He gets on base, he scores runs, he drives and runs. He plays first and the outfield. Now he's a lefty specialist. He faces a lot of left-handed hitters. I don't think he hits righties all that well. So it might be that he hit a string of left-handed starters. I'm not sure, but he's playing really well right now. So I have him. And then I'm going to prop up a Cincinnati Red. The Reds are pummeled by injuries right now. And so Will Benson is finding a lot of playing time. He was the 4th outfielder.
Had a home run last night.
Yep. Put up great numbers as a 4th outfielder, but because the at-bats weren't that consistent, it was hard to justify owning him. Well, now he's getting daily at-bats, and he's taking full advantage. He's a power speed guy. He's an incredible athlete. And so he's a guy I would own in a heartbeat if he was available in one of my leagues.
I like Benson. I'm just worried about playing time because he is a platoon guy. But as you said, the Reds are beat up. He does strike a lot. If that means anything in your league, some leagues it doesn't matter if they strike out or not. I mean, people say De La Cruz strikes out a lot, which he does. But you know what? It's just like hit fly ball to center field. He's either going to hit a home run or he's going to strike out. I get it, but
right, and he can beat out a ground ball. So
yeah, and if he's hitting like 260, which he is right now, and he had like 11 game hitting streak going on. I mean, I don't care about strike. I could care less if he'll just get better throughout the year. But Benson's another guy that does strike out a lot, but I do like him. And I wish if he could play every day, I would love him. But
right now he's playing every day. So even if he's just a streamer for you right now.
Yeah.
And then somebody I got to mention, I love his name and he's playing well. And now with Gerardo Perdomo hurt in Arizona, Blaze Alexander. He's a middle infielder.
I love that name.
He plays at second and shortstop. The funny thing is there's a car dealership in Pennsylvania, at least in my area, that's Blaze Alexander Chevrolet or Blaze Alexander Toyota. So I don't think it's the same guy. But
I don't think so.
He's hitting the ball really hard. He's hitting the ball really well. Almost 300 the last 2 weeks. A home run, a stolen base. He's playing every day. He's in the bottom of that lineup, but that lineup is so good. Even at the bottom, he's putting up decent numbers. And he's the one who's keeping Jordan Lawler, their top prospect, in the minor leagues because he's playing so well.
I want to ask you about a couple players. David Fry of the Guardians. What's your take on him? He plays catcher.
I saw that.
He's a DH also, but what's your take on him?
My take on him is he's putting up good numbers. My problem is he's playing every other game, it seems like. He's only, in the last 2 weeks, he's only had 15 total at bats. And on the season, he's only had 15 total at bats. I apologize. And so the numbers are good. He's got a home run and a stolen base and batting 333, but 5 for 15 through however many games they've played just isn't enough. He's not playing often enough to be on my roster.
Now, Mitch Haniger of Seattle.
He went back home.
In 2021, he had like 39 home runs. And then he got hurt. Then he got hurt again. Now he's healthy. He's starting to hit. Is it somebody that you would consider picking up at the outfield position, or just you're ignoring?
I think he's doing right what I would expect him to do, and I didn't draft him. So in that respect, if I have some guys severely injured or underperforming, I might consider him as a fill-in because he does bat fifth in that lineup on a pretty regular basis. But on the season, he only has one home run. He hasn't run at all. So I can find one home run on my roster somewhere else. So no, I'm going to stay away from Mitch Haniger for now. And because of his injury history, I couldn't rely on him anyway.
Who else waiver? Anybody else from missing waiver wire? Then I want to talk to you about guys that are overachieving, maybe underachieving.
On my list, I think Jose Caballero in Tampa Bay, second baseman, shortstop, 4 stolen bases. Not going to give you any power, but he's going to run like the Dickens. And because they had this really good shortstop who did some really bad things, there's a lot of playing time available for him now. In
about Wander Franco and Wander Franco, I'll say his name. I mean, that's one of the sad things in baseball. I mean, I know you are, but I just want to make sure the audience.
I don't see how he gets back in. And I wasn't familiar with him preseason, but Trey Lipscomb in Washington, the third baseman, batting 260 with 4 steals, scores 5 runs. Like those are some numbers I can kind of get behind. So
Washington is a weird team. They're so youth oriented right now, and they're just using guys that they drafted the past few years, and they're on the youth movement. They're not. If you're under 30, if you're over 30, they don't want you. I mean, basically, they have a few pitchers that are over 30, but they're just focusing on the future, and I get it. I think it's a great move on their part. They're not going to draw anybody. No one's going to go to the games, but it doesn't matter because 2 or 3 years from now, this team's going to be competing. Kind of what Tampa Bay did, 10 years ago. But the Nationals, to me, they'll be lucky to win like 60 games. They'll be lucky to win that.
Yeah, I think they'll beat the 100 loss season. I would predict 65, but 60 isn't far off. No.
No,
I mean,
and
Mackenzie Gore is pitching well. They have some players. Lipscomb is playing well. You got who's the outfielder who always geez, I'm blanking on his name. They're going to bring up
Alec
their
Thomas.
they're going to no, that Alec Thomas was Arizona.
Oh, right.
No, I'll look it up. He always overperform. Lane Thomas, that's what it was.
Lane Thomas.
Lane
That's it.
Thomas always puts up numbers. CJ Abrams
Abrams.
is a good young player.
Yep.
So I think they're going to be able to get to close. They're going to lose less than 100 games. So I'm not a huge fan. Kyber Ruiz is a good young player. You can trip your way into 70 wins sometimes.
Let's just talk relief pitchers real quick. People that are looking for saves. Kevin Ginkel for the Arizona. It's his job right now to be the closer, but Seawald is coming back soon. Pick up if you need a reliever. I love Ginkel. I love Griffin Jacks of Minnesota. We're talking about Johan Duran, who's out. Joan Duran, who's out right now. So Jacks is their closer. Jacks stuff. And Minnesota will win at least 80 games this year, I think. And then in Milwaukee,
Central,
yeah, and then in Milwaukee, there's Abner Uribe and Joel Payamps are taking Devin Williams' place. And in Detroit, of course, I drafted Alex Lange, and he's not the
which
closer.
allowed me to get Jason Foley.
There you go. Jason Foley's the big pickup in Detroit. So those are just some closer ideas.
Yeah,
closers. I'll be honest about closers, Casey. But by All-Star break, all the closers that are supposed to close, half of them are not going to have their job. They'll either be hurt or they'll be demoted or somebody else took their place. So to draft a closer high up in the draft is just, I can see drafting maybe one of the top guys, but to draft like a mediocre guy and then lose their job, it's a total waste of a pick. And it's true, though. If you look, by All-Star break, we'll go over the closers in All-Star break. These guys didn't have the job, and now they do, which shows you, like, every year you just got to fight yourself and not pick those closers up so early. You got to wait. Casey Scheinfeld. Casey, we're achieving this season. Who's just hitting the cover off the ball that you're surprised about? That is just, if you have them on your team, maybe it's a good time to trade them.
My sell high list?
The sell high list. Who right now do you want to sell high?
I would probably sell high Teoscar Hernandez right now, although I do think he's going to have a really good year. But where you got him in the draft, the value you get for him now is greater. Tyler O'Neill is another name who is just, he's top 6, I think, in fantasy baseball right now in standard roto. And he's, wasn't in the top 200. I know preseason. Other guys were Bryce Terang. We talked about, these are all my sell high guys. I talked about picking up Spencer Turnbull if he's available, but he'd also be one of my overachievers who I would sell high on. So you got that going for you. Michael Conforto, we mentioned, is overachieving. Connor Joe is overachieving. So, those are some batters on the pitcher side, although I mentioned Spencer Turnbull. Ronel Blanco, do you think he's legit? I know he has the no-hitter.
He pitched no-hitter. He pitched a no-hitter for Houston this season.
And then he pitched 6 shutout innings his next start.
And I was asking, what was his last? I didn't check his last start, which is 6 innings.
So Ronel Blanco. So the top 3 pitchers in fantasy baseball at this point in the season are Ronel Blanco, Tanner Houck, and Reed Detmers.
Reed Detmers of the Angels, Tanner Houck of Boston. And I'm not a big Reed guy. I think he's good, but I don't think he's a top 10 pitcher in the league.
Right. But obviously the talk has been Garrett Crochet and what he's done. And he has been great. He's another one I would probably sell high on. Tyler Anderson, your Angels of Anaheim, has been
yesterday.
Electric. He's never going to be a strikeout guy. And so if you can get ace value for somebody who's not going to strike out more than 4 or 5 per 9 innings, you got to get the value of that while you can. So there's some of the pitchers who are overachieving.
I like it. And then let's say underachieving. Who's
pitchers
not
or hitters?
Let's talk about both.
All
So
right.
talk about underachieving hitters. I'll start. I'll say Rodriguez of Seattle, Acuna of Atlanta are both underachieving. And if you don't have those players and you want to trade for them, right now is a good time to do it because I'm sure the owners are getting frustrated. And
And don't forget
right
Corbin
now,
Carroll. Don't forget Corbin Carroll.
oh,
We're
I
talking
love Corbin.
probably the three best young outfielders in baseball, right? Like they're all in their early 20s. They were all top 5 picks in the preseason, and not one of them is inside the top 200 right now.
I mean, are these people that you would trade for?
Oh, I
mean,
would absolutely. Because if you look at Julio Rodriguez splits from last season, he was terrible the first 2 months of the season and still ended up 30, 280. Ronald Acuna is coming off of the greatest fantasy season in the history of baseball. So he could regress 20% and still be a top 10 player. And Corbin Carroll, we know how good he is. He bats leadoff in a great lineup. He's still stealing bags, even though he's not doing anything else. I would absolutely target him.
I mean, those are 3 great first-round picks.
Don't forget Aaron Judge, another top 10 outfielder who's he hit a couple home runs this weekend, so that helps him, but he's still only batting 175 on the season.
I think Judge has just been hurt too much. He's getting older. I think his heyday is over with, but that's me. But I still think he'll have at least 35, 40 home runs if he stays healthy. But again, he's somebody that was drafted in most leagues first round.
Yep.
All those guys. Let's talk pitchers, Casey. Who has started off horribly? And
Spencer Strider, without the injuries, let's get rid of the injury ones. Luis Castillo has been terrible.
Over 60 ERA, horribly pitches tonight. Who's next?
So maybe he'll have a bounce back tonight.
Same thing last year. If you remember, Casey, he was horrible at the beginning of the season last year. Horrible. I mean, he couldn't get anybody out. And it's happening again. And then he was lights after the All-Star break case. He was lights out. I mean, this guy wasn't losing any games. It was just 6-7 innings.
So it's a good time to target him. Yeah.
So
Kevin Gossman. Kevin Gossman's been bad. George Kirby's been bad.
I've been watching pitch, and his fastball's not as fast as it used to be. And he's not pitching. He lost a little bit. I mean, I'm not a fan of Gossman's anymore. I remember when he came up, he got rocked a little bit, and then he's a really good pitcher.
He got rocked in Baltimore, went to San Francisco and found it, and he was great in Toronto last year.
Yeah, he was great, but I'm not a believer this year. I would just stay away from him.
What's your take? Here's a guy you own, or you did in one of the leagues we used to be in. Logan Webb has been terrible.
Logan Webb can't get anybody out. He's been strikeout. Another guy, not a strikeout guy. He's not going to strike people out, and he's a ground ball pitcher. And he has not been. Again, he's known to be a top 10 pitcher in the league. He's not 10 this year, but I still believe in him. I would, if you can trade for him and if you can make maybe one of your mediocre players that wants to just dump him, it's not a bad time to do it. You know what I mean? So I like Logan Webb. That's a real good example.
What about Aaron Nola? Do you see him the same way? Because he's been rough.
I love Aaron Nola. It's a second season. I'm not worried about Aaron Nola. He's doing a big bowling tournament for charity, I think, in Philadelphia. So if you live in Philly, make sure you go to the event, give some money for the troops. I like Aaron Nola. I have him in our league. Another guy I have in our league that I just pray he doesn't get hurt. But he'll bounce back. I mean, he's somebody I would trade for if you need another starter. I think his value is down right now. I think that's a great example.
I have two more starters I want to talk about.
Go.
Do you believe that Max Fried has lost it?
Ooh.
I mean, we're talking after 2 starts, he has an 18 ERA and a 3.2 WHIP.
I saw the last start.
This is a guy who was figured to be maybe the best ERA in the league was one of the predictions for that this year. Never been a
You know,
huge strikeout guy, but he always was a weak contact, keep the ball on the ground, get easy outs kind of guy, and he can't even get people out.
I think he'll bounce back. I think I wouldn't give up on him if you can trade for him and get him at a low price. Yes, yes, yes. If some owners still value him really high, I would stay away because who knows what he could be physically hurt. I don't know, but
Yeah,
there's something wrong with him. Obviously, if he's that type of ERA. He reminds me of remember Alec Manoah last year, how he struggled for like
sure.
the first
Who
couple
doesn't
months.
remember? A
I
couple
mean,
months he struggled forever. Yeah.
yeah, and he's finally sent him down, and now he's in the minors, but he'll be back. I mean, Max Fried, Jack Flannery, and Lucas Lucas
Giolito. Yeah,
Giolito, they
Giolito.
all played on the same high school team. Lucas is out for the season. Jack's with Detroit. No, Jack is with Detroit.
Yeah, he's with Detroit.
He's pitching okay, and then Max Fried looks horrible. So I'm hoping Fried is through this. If I was the Braves, I would if he has a bad start next time, I'd probably maybe rest him or put him on the IL for a week just to clear his head. Because obviously there's something wrong. I mean, he's getting pummeled. I mean, it's not even close.
It's bad news bears type of hits.
I just feel bad for the guy.
The last pitcher for me is maybe the guy I would target more than any of the other ones as a buy low candidate, and that's Bobby Miller in LA. If you remember, this guy was really good last year. He was projected to be really, really good this year. Yeah. And after so far he has a 5.87 ERA, which is ugly. And so you might have an owner there who just looks at the ERA and says, yeah, this guy is not as good as we thought he was. But in only 7 2/3 innings, he has 14 strikeouts, almost 2 an inning, and his whip is only 1.17. So it sounds like he's gotten pretty unlucky, and that's why I would probably look to target somebody like that in the trade.
I like the Bobby Miller idea. I think that's a great one. I mean, I live in Los Angeles. I see him pitch all the time, and I think he'll pitch his way through it. And again, yeah, I agree with you. If you can trade for him for like a mediocre pitcher or mediocre hitter, do it. I mean, this is the time when you guys should be sending out trade offers. I mean, there's a lot of stupid people that send out really bad offers and you just delete those. Those people either just want to.
And even if you don't think the owner will take it, like make it a fair trade offer, right? And then but you might be surprised. You might find somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I'll do that."
I mean, the classic example, we have a guy that we do a show with on Thursday, Dr. Dan Ratner. Basically, he's great, but he would pick up guys off waivers, literally, and then all of a sudden he'll try to trade you for the guys he picked up on waivers, for guys that you drafted, and you're like, why would I do this trade? I could have picked these guys up yesterday. All of a sudden, you're trading for them. So again, just with a good time to trade is now, because you can get these guys really low. Because I know some owners, I'm telling you, they're getting frustrated. People are getting very frustrated on some players, and they just want to switch it up. And if they're not winning right now, the first couple of weeks, they want to figure ways they can win. So this is a great time to improve your team, because after All-Star break, everybody's kind of set in their ways. Either they're winning or they're losing, and they're not going to do anything with you. They don't care. So this is the time to trade, KC. As soon as I get off, I'll make you some offers. Don't worry.
And just real quick before we wrap up, I'll give you a few minor league names for anybody who's followed us for any length of time. They'll know that I am
Casey goes to like minor league parks in the middle of nowhere. Like he'll go to Asheville, North Carolina, and watch some team play.
I would love to. I don't get to do it, but that would certainly be something.
The Reading, what are they called? The Reading Phillies? Is that what they're called? The Reading.
There is a team in Reading. Yep.
Minor league team for the Phillies.
Speaking of the Phillies, I'll throw a name out from the Phillies. Everybody knows who. Before I say him, everybody knows Jackson Holiday, Junior Caminero, Dylan Cruz, kind of the top names. James Wood, Spencer Jones, all of those guys who, they'll be up eventually. But chances are if you're in a league that allows minor leaguers to be owned, they're the guys who are already owned. So I'm going to name, I'll give you 4 guys who
Great.
aren't probably owned. You know, everybody knows Andrew Painter in Philadelphia has that super high ceiling. Probably would have been up last year, but he had the Tommy John issue. So he's out and he's still dealing with injuries. But they have another guy, Mick Abel, M-I-C-K, Mick Abel, A-B-E-L, who's a 6'5", almost 200-pound pitcher for them with frontline starter kind of upside. He pitched well in the spring training, but they sent him back to AAA. He's doing okay there. He'll be good there. And then as soon as there's an injury in a rotation, and we know how often pitching injuries occur, he could get a quick promotion, and that's somebody I'd want to jump on. Another guy is Colorado Rockies have this gargantuan young man who's 6'2", 225, an athlete named Jordan Beck who plays in the outfield. Last year, his sophomore and junior seasons at Tennessee, 33 home runs in 133 games. He has some strikeout in his game, but last year in the minors, 271, 34 doubles, 25 homers, 20 steals, 91 RBIs between high A and double A. He played really well in spring training, but they sent him down anyway. In AAA, he's off to a red hot start, 5 for 12 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs in the first 3 games. They can move Charlie Blackmon to full-time DH, and they have right field open for him, and I don't see why they don't do that. Tyler Black in Milwaukee is a third baseman, second baseman. His counting numbers were awesome last year, obviously. 284, 25 doubles, 12 triples, 18 home runs, 55 steals in 123 games. But what was more impressive, 88 walks to 100 strikeouts. So he has a really good approach. He's going to be up eventually. And then the last one I'm going to name is because I just like his name. Houston Astros first baseman. They're going to give him a chance to play at first because we all know that first base has not been a strong position in Houston. Joey Loper-Fido, Loperfido. He's not a household name.
Loper-Fido. The Looper is part of his name. It's not his nickname. It's like
nope. It's Joey Loper-Fido. Okay. All one word, Loper-Fido. He batted.
Oh, okay, one word.
In spring training, he batted 382 with 6 extra base hits and 41 plate appearances. He hit 25 home runs, 27 steals with a 280 average last year across 3 minor league levels. I mean, he's got good speed, good power, and a good hit tool. I could see him getting the call up at some point. So those are some names that other people might not be aware of that I think you could get on them early. And if they show up on your roster, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
I like Abel, I like Black, I like Loper-Fido, and what's the guy from Tennessee, from Colorado? Beck. I like Beck also. Yeah. These are all great minor leaguers. I've actually heard of all of them except Loper-Fido I did not know, but now I do. But I will keep them in consideration. I'm watching ESPN and all my other sources to find out when they're being brought up because I may in some of my leagues. You never know. Casey, thanks for coming on. We'll see you guys
I'm excited. Baseball
Thursday, we'll see everybody on Dr. Dan Ratner's baseball show. We'll talk fantasy baseball strategy. We'll talk news. We'll talk everything anything you guys wanted. This is more waiver wire stuff. If you guys are looking for players to pick up, this is the place to be. We'll be here next week at 1 o'clock. Dan Ratner shows at 4 o'clock or 4:30 Eastern.
4 o'clock. 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific.
Same as us. Okay, good. So we'll see you guys on Thursday. We'll harass Dan. Don't worry. I'm Ross the Boss, and that's Vlad to the Bone, Casey Scheinfeld. We'll see you guys on Thursday.